verdict in a decision later this week or next week. So it's like something happens at midnight because they will not have met, and he is due as of midnight.
Well, Steve, he's got a lot more time than everybody thinks, because seizing his real estate, that's a long, cumbersome process. It requires court approval to attach assets, impose liens, all of which needs to be priced on real estate values, and appraisals, as we learned in the trial, vary widely based on market conditions, partnerships, outstanding loans, leases, occupancy, tax implications. So I would expect weeks of petitions, court hearing, testimony from experts, and banks could intervene because they have a superior financial interest. In terms of his bank accounts, Letitia James can try to freeze them, but even that is fraught with obstacles, because I suspect his cash may be tied up in corporate and family accounts. Ownership there is not as straightforward as you would think.
Yeah. So, Greg, I get the sense that this is all political, and it's not just because of what Letitia James said on the campaign trail. It's what AOC is saying right now. Watch.
I think that what we are dealing with politically is the much larger and much more grave and serious pressure of having this judgment against Donald Trump and him being in this degree of debt and the financial pressures that he is under and what he is subject to do in order to obtain those assets. I actually think that that there is risk in not seizing these assets and the open window that exists in him trying to secure these funds through other means.
I mean, truly unbelievable, Jared.
I have no idea what she was saying.
Not really.
I don't think she does. Trying to make sense of anything AOC says is sort of a favorite Washington parlor game. She has this uncanny ability to talk incessantly while saying absolutely nothing. And that is because she is hopelessly uninformed, terminally obtuse, and I think just plain ignorant. This is the same person a week ago who said RICO or racketeering is not a crime. No sane person takes AOC seriously, which I suppose is why she's always featured on CNN.
Yeah, and Greg, when it comes to those political comments, in 2017, Letitia James said that she's going to go after the Trump administration because they're too pale, they're too male, and too stale. So there's too many men, there's too many white men who are old. So she said that in 2017, and more recently she said she's eyeing up 40 Wall Street because it's near the Attorney General's office, like this is some shopping trip. So when Donald Trump does appeal this ruling, could his lawyers use those past political comments to their favor?
Oh, I think they absolutely could, because remember, she campaigned for office on the promise to get Trump. She literally said that. As if she's saying by hook or by crook, and it looks like it was by crook, because this was an incredibly weak case. The only thing she had going for her was a anti-Trump judge who wore his bias on his sleeve. And he intentionally, I think, rendered an astronomical judgment against Trump, knowing full well he couldn't possibly meet it with a bond. That was his intent, to make it impossible for Trump and try to ruin him financially. I still have faith in the higher courts. They'll look at this and say it's utterly ludicrous, and the measurement of damages bears no resemblance to any harm in the case, because as everybody testified at trial, there was no harm.
A couple of things, just to everyone at home, it gets confusing, but the president's waiting to find out if a judge will allow him, or a five-member appellate court will allow him to pay less of a money of bond. We're waiting on that, and the court convenes on Tuesday. And they're also waiting because he's actually challenging the decision to find him all that money from an appellate court. So he's got 2 appeals, but in the meantime, they want to take all his stuff. And if they take his stuff and sell it and he wins the appeal, he's out of luck. Even if they sell it put pennies on a dollar. It's unbelievable. But I want to talk about today the hush money case. At 10 o'clock, the president's choosing to be there when Judge Merchant will decide whether this case goes forward right away. Suddenly, Alvin Bragg says, despite me saying last week, I don't mind the delay in the case because of all the new paperwork that came from the Southern District of New York. How many pages?
170,000 documents.
Yeah, 1,000 documents. Suddenly, this week, he's like, hey, listen, I got to get started. I want to get this done. What do you think will happen?
What a joke.
Well, when you withhold roughly 170,000 documents from the defense, they have a due process right guaranteed under law to review those relevant documents to locate any exculpatory evidence. Apparently, Bragg's office says, there's only about 300 relevant pages. Well, who in the world would take his word for it? And why Bragg didn't push the feds to turn over those documents for roughly 1 year, that extends to the prejudice of the accused in this case. Moreover, this is, as everybody has pointed out, a pretty weak case. If you look at the indictment, Bragg still hasn't amended it to identify the underlying crime, which the defendant is entitled to know before he goes to trial. So, this is a case that's got a whole host of problems that I think the defense will try to exploit.
But, Greg, at its core, though, you have all these DAs that are supposed to be criminal justice reformers that don't want to target nonviolent crimes, alleged crimes. But all of a sudden, they have gotten wind in their sails to go after the former president. I just don't understand the hypocrisy there.
Well, the hypocrisy should be apparent to everybody. I think there's one common denominator among all of these 4 indictments against Trump, and that is they all seem to be politically motivated, designed to damage Trump and timed to damage Trump during an election. I mean, that's sort of classic election interference. What they didn't anticipate are the many obstacles they're now facing in the classified documents case, the immunity argument in the J6 case in Washington. Of course, Fanny Bragg seems to have self-destructed before our very eyes, and now the Alvin Bragg case has got a problem as well. So, their best laid plans seem to have been undermined by their own actions.
Well, and the former president will be in court at 10 o'clock this morning in Lower Manhattan. That's why we asked you to give us a preview of his day in court. Greg, thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
My pleasure.
You bet.
Okay, you really